Hello, 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 hello. It's good to see you. Say hello.
Welcome to the Huskies Hockey Podcast. I'm Weldie, sitting with Andrew here, going over the eventful weekend in Huskies hockey, both men's and women's side. We got 2 series to tackle, 1 series to preview, and then other odds and ends about college hockey. But I got one kind of main question that I want to ask you, Andrew, and that is, how far down the list would you have to go before you would land on Joe Molenaar being the first hat trick of the season?
Yeah, quite a lot.
He wasn't my first pick, and I'll give you a hint. He wasn't picked 2nd through 12. So
That sounds about right.
yeah, Huskies win 3-2 on Friday and complete the sweep 6-0 in convincing fashion on Saturday. After the Alaska series, during the Alaska series, they put together that Sahlquist, Kupka, Molenaar line, and I was kind of surprised to see that again. And sure enough, I will have to say, I've been incredibly hard on Sahlquist and overall, but I was really impressed with how that line played this weekend. We can put the caveat all we want that, it's Miami, so it's not what we would consider a good team by any means, but you play what's in front of you, and this is the weekend that the Huskies needed to bounce back. And I thought the 3-2 game on Friday, the scoreboard makes it look closer than it actually was. But I was really impressed with that line, and I've been incredibly hard on Sahlquist, but I got to give him his due. I thought he was incredibly impressive all weekend.
Yeah, it's nice to see the upperclassmen show up. It's still not exactly the ones that I would have expected, as far as like Okabe is still struggling to find his groove. But
hey, he still passed up on a couple of shots.
He even passed up on an empty net chance on the Friday game.
Yeah,
I passed it over, and it burned them a little bit because they weren't able to score, and then Miami taps in that kind of fluky goal, and they had like 10 seconds there at the end. So it wasn't hugely impactful, but still, I don't know. And I think he hit a post on Saturday. I'm still speaking about Okabe here, so I think he is getting snake bit a little bit. He looked better this weekend than he has in weeks past, but still getting him to click, I think, is the last kind of piece of the upperclassmen to step up. But if we're going to get some scoring from guys like Molenaar, I think they mentioned, it was the KVSC guys I was listening to said that, or pointed out that Molenaar had 2 goals all of last year. So he had more goals in this game, on the Saturday game, than he had all of last year. And so if you're going to,
periods.
Yeah, and if you're going to have that, it's similar to like he could maybe put in a season like Kupka did last year, where I remember Kupka's first few years, we were scratching our heads, kind of wondering what exactly his role in this team was, and then he kind of broke out to the extent of 25-point season or whatever he had. He's breaking out. If we can get something like that from Molenaar this year, that might help cover either the freshman not quite coming into form, or Okabe is some upperclassmen that aren't quite living up to their expectations. So yeah, if we can get goals from what we were thinking would be maybe an unexpected source in Molenaar, that's great. This weekend was nice. He said, I think Miami kind of showed that their 4-1-1 start wasn't exactly to be taken 100% seriously. I still didn't. I thought the move to put their backup in for his first collegiate game on Saturday, that's something that bad teams do. It's like that Neaton had played every game this year, and he looked I thought very good on Friday. If you're gonna, I realize you're gonna need to get a backup some action, but wouldn't the Kenesha series or some other series in non-conference, wouldn't that have been a better time other than on the road in a conference opening series situation? Kind of threw him to the wolves, and he did not look good. He gave up 6, and
No.
then there was the 3 pipes also that beat him. And so not a great start for like developing his confidence. And I just thought a head scratching move. I expected to see Neaton and did not. And the Huskies, I wasn't blown away by that first period on Saturday, but after the first goal goes in there from Molenaar, probably a potential Herbie nominee. I think that first goal of
Right?
his,
That's
we might be hearing
our
from that one.
first goal of the year nominee, right?
You might be hearing from that come award season. But after that, it literally was no contest. And so good to see the Huskies again. I think we're going to get our real first big test of the year coming up here at Western Michigan, which is maybe weird to say because, with the struggles they had in October. But I think the schedule starts to really ramp up here. And so taking care of business against Miami, which I wasn't even confident on that coming into the weekend, but doing so, especially in convincing fashion on Saturday, was good to see. It's at least lets me off the thinking that this is just going to be a disastrous season. Like, you've righted the ship to the extent you're back to 500 and you're undefeated so far in league play. If you can keep this momentum going throughout this month and beyond, maybe they're not going to be too far off from where we were expecting them coming into the season. I'm still hesitant on that. I'm still wavering on what my expectations should be, but we'll be able to find out certainly by the end of this month how they handle these next 6 games. I think is going to be a really kind of important window into what we've got here. So yeah, I don't. I mean, Bassie, for all that we say about him too. I mean, a shutout and that second goal on Friday wasn't great, or at least didn't look great. But then he wasn't tested terribly much. But he rose to the occasion.
There were a couple of breakaways that he had to stop, or partial breakaways that he had to come up big. I did say at the end of towards that Fletcher's goal, that extra attacker that we let in with 11, 9, somewhere in there seconds left, that it wouldn't be a game unless Bassie gets beat high. And sure enough, it was some kind of a weird flutter shot that ended up kind of scooting by him. But really, other than that, yeah, I thought Bassie was incredibly strong. Came up big when he needed to. Like you said, wasn't tested insanely much, but anytime he was, when it mattered, he rose to the great occasion. I really like Werner Omega every game more and more that he plays. I think he's just getting more and more confident. I thought obviously that the goal to extend the lead in the third period on the power play, where he was able to beat short side high, that's just a goal scorer's type of goal. And to see him kind of make that extra move, that extra play, and get that going, I thought that was awesome to see. SCSU dominated the face-off circle, and really both Mietnins, just incredibly, continuing their really good start to the season. VT, I think, has been incredibly strong. So, yeah, I was happy with how they played. I thought Ashan as well. There was, I think it was on Saturday. Who scored that? Ashan, I believe, had an assist on that goal. Where they were able to kind of cycle it around. I think it was Peart's goal, where it was able to kind of go one-on-one with the goalie and just beat him clean 5-hole. But it was Kupka, Salquist. I think Ashan was kind of caught on the line change or whatnot, but they were able to kind of work it around. Somebody, again, that depth, starting to get a little bit more comfortable. We're starting to kind of see these things kind of get a little bit more in stride, more in gear and whatnot. And I'm really excited to kind of for them to keep up this momentum. Like I said, I thought that bye week kind of came at a good time, and us getting there to really show that there's something a little bit more of this team than that we've seen this year. I found it interesting that Clark sat on Saturday after playing. I believe he's played all game or every game so far this year.
Yes.
So to see him kind of sit was a little bit of a surprise. You had Ewert get a little bit of time. Ports sat on Friday. A little bit surprised on that, but I thought that Ryman, Gross, Sean line, like I said, on Saturday. I thought that was really good. Gross, I thought did well. Barrett Hall, we've talked about him pretty much every week. Friday, I thought he was really good. Little invisible there on Saturday, but nothing that I'm like too concerned about. I didn't think he had like any big standout moments or anything like that. So
yeah, I like that young line with Ashan and Gross and Ryman. I thought that's a nice energy line. I've generally liked Ashan. He's kind of got like the potential to be, especially with like the penalty kill assignments that he's been normally getting, kind of maybe develop into a Micah Miller type role, just kind of a feisty, kind of pesky, speedy
he reminds me of
player.
a Johnny Swanson.
There we go. Yeah, another in that mold. And so I've liked what I've seen from him. I agree. I mean, I'm in favor of cutting down Clark's playing time. Not that I think he's been improving, but he did look quite raw in the first few weekends of the year. I wasn't terribly impressed with Ewert. I thought he was a little shaky on Saturday, but perhaps it's because he really hasn't seen much ice time. I think just the second game that he's gotten action in. Seeing they're playing both Mietinen's on the same line, pretty regularly at this point, and I do think that we see some chemistry. Not surprising since they share the same genes, and I'm not talking about Levi's, but maybe they do. Who knows? Maybe that's a hand-me-down situation. Do they wear jeans? Do they wear denim? Is denim big in Scandinavia? I'm not sure.
It's Lederhosen, isn't it?
Yeah,
There you go. Is that Austria? I don't think that's Scandinavia.
Yeah, it's close enough. But I think that is definitely finding to be a successful match, and I would assume because it is kind of clicking that it's going to continue. And I like to see that. Yeah, it's you hit on a lot of the good points.
Puku dress is what they wear in Finland.
There you go.
I mean, this website is a very female focus, so I don't know if the men wear the puka dress, but maybe.
Yeah, let's ask them to see if they've got one or two of those. But
yeah, exactly. So.
But yeah, tough to nitpick about this weekend. Like I said, I didn't love the Friday game, and that first period on the Saturday game I thought was a little slow going. But for the most part, I don't think Miami had much to offer in terms of a tough test. So we'll see how they respond with the uptick in opponent this weekend.
Yep. So when you're one thing I wanted to add when I was talking about Barrett Hall, because they slid him over to center over the last 2 weeks or last two series with Alaska and Miami. And Ingram, who started at center, they've kept him at wing throughout kind of this stretch. I don't know how much Barrett Hall has played at center before this season, but I've really liked him there. He, like I said, he was really kind of had a big dynamic presence there on Friday's game. Saturday a little bit little bit more subdued, but you know, it's he was able to do his job still really well. Um, so I found that kind of interesting that he is kind of slid in that center role. Ports on the wing there on Saturday, didn't really see a lot out of him. Kind of a little bit more um, quiet, but obviously, I don't know about you, but I think my POW was a pretty easy pick, with it going to be going to Joey Molenaar. Again, hat trick. I mean, there's really nothing more you can say about that. With the first goal, Herbie nominee. Second goal, maybe a little bit of fluke. You have a bank in. Third, just an easy tap in. Found it interesting that we had Gino up at the box, after the hat trick goal, saying, "Oh, they're not all going to be pretty," and et cetera, et cetera. And I'm just sitting there like, these are the exactly type of goals that I want, is these easy tap-ins, and like that's a pretty goal to me. Like the second goal wasn't the pretty goal. Like say all that commentary back at that goal, not necessarily the one that you were in good position, uncovered, and it was an easy tap in.
Yeah, no, they all count, the same in the score sheet, and yeah, I definitely agree that he's going to be the player of the weekend for me as well. I'm wondering if that's a first. I feel like
I can't imagine it.
I feel like either one of us gave him a player of the weekend in like one of those like got swept weekends. Like we don't have a good. It was like a spite POW.
It was a spite
where we're
POW.
just like, Molenaar. See, that makes it sound even worse because it's Molenaar that we're saying is the best player this weekend. But no, he definitely earned it. He got both of our votes, and he got Alex Fern's vote, who was so confident that he picked him as the POW prior to the game ending on Saturday. He gave us a shout out on air. So,
well, there you
so
go.
it's a trifecta between us three with Molenaar POW.
Well, it's the Go Huskies Woo as well. He went with Molenaar.
Really?
But he
shocking.
But he did say that he really actually thought he'd go with Brett Larson, which I don't think is legal. But I guess with this segment, who knows. But the reason why is like just putting together Kupka, Salquist, and Molenaar, and actually, Gowaski's Woo and I were talking even before Friday's game, like, what are we doing putting this together? And like 30 seconds later, Salquist just shuts us up with that goal, and we were like, "Yep, perfect. Yeah, that's how it works." So that line's really solid. All three players had a great weekend in their own way. That line provided a spark. Not the most skilled. They really did anything right. Hall and Werner looked really good. VT was awesome. Anhorn, he said it was back to closer than what he was, letting the game come to him versus trying to force it. It said it was a good weekend overall. 6 out of 6 points, which is what you need.
That's right.
Yeah, I thought Anhorn. Yeah, I think he's starting to get maybe a little bit more comfortable back there. Peart still scares me every now and then. I think he had a couple of plays on Friday's game that definitely made me clench my butt cheeks maybe a little bit too tight. But I don't think any of them ended up actually costing us. So that's ideal. So heading into Western Lawson, where we haven't been good as of late. And Western Michigan team that, just kind of really polarizing. I would say when it comes to what people make of them, they lost a lot, but they retained some. I was kind of back and forth on them. So far, kind of starting out with a strong record, 4-1-1. Their one loss, overtime loss to Omaha. So, just kind of what do you think for the Huskies coming into Western Michigan?
Yeah, as you said, no, no wins. Oh, so Larson did beat them in his first year, but that's the last time they beat them in early 2019. And um,
Is it the breweries in Kalamazoo? Is it the wonderful what West Michigan air? Like what is it about Kalamazoo that's been the Achilles heel for these Husky squads lately?
well, yeah, because that's the thing. Because prior to this 6-game losing streak at Lawson, they had not lost at Lawson.
Yeah.
They went the first 6-7 years in the NCHC with I think just one shootout loss there, and including results like an 11-1 win that I was in the stands for. They owned the
I did a
Broncos.
YouTube clip of Huskies comeback. I think Robbie Jackson was a big part of it, and where we came
Yeah,
in
that
late.
I think they were down. That was at least the last minute goal. I think they were down 2 in the last 5 minutes and came back to win that game. And then the next game, I think they beat them like 8-1 or 8-2, something like that. That would have
Yeah.
been the last win that they've had there. And the losses in the last 6 have really kind of been blowout losses at
Yeah.
that.
Not
Really
competitive at
not
all.
competitive games. So they weren't there last year. They kind of were fortunate to not see or not to visit Kalamazoo last year based on their recent track record, but now they're back. And yeah, I think that I mentioned them a couple of weeks ago. I'm still fairly high on them. Furschweiler has proven that he's capable of rebuilding a top line every year with basically the top line will all bolt, either graduate or turn pro early. But he's been able to rebuild that from scratch, like no holdovers on these lines. And so this year it looks like it's I think we called it the Cheers line because Dylan went right now, not George went, but
No.
Norm is leading the way along with Luke
No.
Granger. I guess Luke Granger has 11 points with Wentz 10, and then Ethan
Have you
Phillips.
rewatched Cheers lately?
Not lately, maybe. I think it's been in the last 10 years. I remember watching the first couple of seasons because it was on Netflix. It was when I still had Netflix, so it's been a long time. But I remember liking the rewatch, at least from the start. Like he didn't, and so I don't know where you're going with that, but I didn't make it to the point where because that was a show that is unique in that it survived a major like shark jumping thing with the transition from Diane to Rebecca. Most shows don't survive that, but the Rebecca era of the show still was that's kind of the era that I remember because we watched it as a family, which is kind of nuts to think that a 6-year-old was watching a show at a bar. But I remember watching it like live the last couple of seasons as like a family outing. But so I kind of just watched the maybe the first 3 or 4 seasons, which is a different dynamic. The Sam and Diane sexual tension is off the charts. And I wouldn't be able to know if that was the same because I know the dynamic changed with Kirstie Alley, but I don't know. I don't know where I'm going with that. Where were you going?
I mean, yeah, you're definitely. I was just gonna say how interesting it was that the cold opens were so short. They were like one quick joke, and then it went right into the intro.
Right.
It didn't have like full-fledged scenes. I thought that was just kind of interesting. I mean, that's all I was just it kind of shows its age of the show. But when you were talking about kind of jumping the shark moments, when it comes to that, because I guess I don't know exactly what happened with Diane. Like if she thought she was just a bigger star than she was, so she would to do what Troop Beverly Hills or whatever that movie is called. Oh man, my wife's gonna hate me for not.
She
knowing
did the
what
Money
that-
Pit. She did the Money Pit with Tom Hanks around that time period. But I'm not sure if it was Hollywood that she had bigger sights on at that point. I'm not exactly sure why she left.
It was Troop Beverly Hills. Nice. So I won't have to issue a correction on that one. Anyway, back to the fish.
So anyway, the infamous fish story.
If you got a few seconds here, we can pull up that random box score. We need a sounder for the random box score. But I did go ahead and pull up that comeback, that 5-4 win over Western Michigan. That was March 1st of 2019. Back in our pre-COVID, were we ever so young? Newell from Lazat and Jackson, the first goal, then Walsh, and then Dawson DiPietro scored in the second to 2-1. Training goals there in the early third were Rushinoff from Passolt and Joyo in the third. Jimmy Schultz got one back, and then Drew Warad made it 4-2 Western Michigan. Easton Brodzinski made it 4-3, and then Robbie Jackson took the game over with just a couple minutes left. 17:08 in the third period ties the game up from Lazat and Newell. God, that was a time. God, those were great players. And then it was Robbie Jackson game-winning goal with 15 seconds left to go in the game from Newell and Lazat.
So it didn't go to overtime.
Nope. This was a straight up W.
Yeah, that was a good game. And then what was the next game? Because I think that was like a big rout.
Yep, you said 8. You said 8-3.
I was going to say 8-2.
You're correct. 8-2.
But I think it was 8-0. I think Western's goals came late.
Nope, it was 7-0, then 7-1, and then 8-1.
Yeah, it was a fun one.
And we were outshot that game 40-28. Whew. Gorsuch. Oh man, holy cow, did they have 5 or they had that's right, they did a double pull. They did a triple pull. Is that even possible? Gorsuch and then Ben Blacker back to Gorsuch, and then Will Massey finished it off in the third.
Really?
Oh.
How many did Gorsuch give up?
3. Then he got pulled. Then Blacker gave up 3. And then at the end of the second, they put back in Gorsuch, who gave up 1. And then Massey finished it out.
It's weird. Was the third goalie, did he just play like the third period and that was it? Like they make the change in between periods? So like we just need to get our second best goalie that I've already pulled we need to get out of the second period. But then after that, we'll just punt.
We'll just punt. We're down 7 rip. I think we can put our third goalie in.
It's odd.
And then that season ended in definitely not any heartbreak at all. So.
No.
We just black out that one.
Wouldn't it have been wild to do the podcast during then?
Oh God, I can't even imagine what
the highs and the lows.
Just
we would have had like a Larson. Like they had just hired Larson. We would have had like here's Brett Larson. What do we think? Would like to gone back to that, like what our initial reaction would have been at the time, and how it's aged since then. And then just I don't even know. I don't even want to speculate what the post AIC game would have been like. But
yeah, exactly. That would have been
because we had a post Air Force game. Remember that we did the one off.
That was the bookend of the part 1 of the podcast. It was like the closing tenure of it, because again, it was the big issue that I had was And it's still the only issue that I have is that he clearly showed interest or wanted interest before the Air Force game, and he obviously, we're talking about not great Bob.
Not great, Bob.
And then, he just pretty much cover of darkness, just ditched all of his radio interviews, whatnot, and then boom, showed up in maroon and gold.
I'm not sure if we knew all that at the time. Because I think they announced he was taking the Minnesota job like the Tuesday after that, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so then we would have had the podcast right then, and I'm not sure if we knew the details. Did we know the details that he? Well, he would have ducked out of the radio show because that would have been Monday.
Yep.
And we just knew something was up. I think the story of the Gopher assistant AD being in the building, that was
Sioux Falls.
That was discussed.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think it was Lucia's announcement was like the Thursday or something right before that.
Yeah.
Could you imagine, like, why couldn't you have just talked to him after the season? What was the big rush? Yeah. At least he would have still taken the job, but he could have at least won that damn regional. Yeah, he would have just won the damn regional. That's all. I don't even care if they wouldn't have won the whole thing. Just prevent Duluth from winning it. That would have been my only goal.
That's all that we care.
That's all that matters in retrospect. But that's
anyway.
Nostalgia, memory lane.
Yeah, exactly. Back to the fish story.
So anyway, the infamous fish story.
What do you think for this weekend? I would be happy with the split.
Yep, same here. I want some type of win here in Lawson. Like, for the love of God. It feels like it's been way too long. It's been some kind of an Achilles heel, and it's I think this Western Michigan team, I think they can be solid, but I think this is like kind of our first real test to see what we have in this team, and I really hope that they kind of show up and get ready for this, and really take it to the Broncos, because if they don't, and if we look ugly in these two games, I don't know what we're going to say about this team. I'm kind of riding maybe a little bit of a high because they got things done. They extended a lead, which I was incredibly worried about because, even the first game, they kind of let them hang around a little bit too much. St. Thomas, they let them hang around a little bit too much. Here that, Molenaar gets the goal, and then Ludke, kind of gets that fluke 5-hole goal, but hey, it went it, and then Mietninen's goal. It's like, yes, we're pouring it on. We're extending these leads. We're keeping the pressure up, which we haven't shown. And that's just kind of, I want that same intensity kind of brought to the table there this week here at Lawson.
Yeah, I think it's a good team, Western Michigan. Power play against, it's early, so just 16 chances so far this year, but 30% plus on the power play. So keep out of the box as much as you can in order to negate that. Mentioned that top line with Wendt and Granger and Phillips has been very good, but that second line, I think they have decent depth. Lots of transfers and getting some production from transfers like Sam Colangelo, I believe from Northeastern, Constantini from North Dakota. So they had a good weekend, I thought, in Omaha, winning somewhat convincingly on Friday and then salvaging an overtime loss on Saturday. But that was a game where they tied it up about 10 seconds to go, which was obviously a big, a lot of like buzzer beaters this weekend across the country. That was one of them. And that was Constantini with that goal. So yes, losing in overtime, but getting some pairwise points out of that by just getting it to overtime. Interestingly, Omaha went with Flaccozy for both nights, taking your advice, not sticking with the tandem that he had in the first couple of series, but a strong defense as well. I've always liked this Galambos they got from the AIC. Berger, I think a UConn transfer and draft pick. Alex Bump's got a couple of points. We talked about him. Obviously, for Minnesota prep hockey fans are familiar with that name. So I think they're a deep team. I would say they're at this point at least a deeper team than St. Cloud is offensively. Their goalie, it's Cameron Rowe. He's, I think, kind of like Mr. Average. Like that's like a baseline kind of. For you, it'd be Krona, who I saw. Mr. Average Krona got called up to the NHL. So
I mean, to be
you were
fair,
thrilled about
I
that.
I wouldn't call the San Jose Sharks an NHL team right now.
Yeah, that's. Have they won a game yet? I'm not sure.
No.
The last time I checked, they hadn't. But yeah, not good. Not great, Bob.
Not great, Bob.
Not great, Quinn, who I think is their coach now. But they're probably trying to lose. Like they're probably.
That's the thing is that they gutted like all of their talent and shipped them all off. So I mean, they had no hope to begin with.
Maybe that's the plan with Krona. He's kind of like a Roger Dorn, kind of in disguise, trying to lose on purpose. So let's bring this guy up. So anyway, but Rowe is, I think, kind of in that vein where, he might steal you a game every now and then. He might give up 6 goals every now and then. But he's generally okay. I think it's a goalie that's St. Cloud. I mean, they've had success when he was still at Wisconsin.
I was gonna say Wisconsin.
I think they pulled
good.
him on in one of those games. I believe it would have been the home games 2 years ago.
Oh, we didn't go there last year, right? They just came here.
No, last year St. Cloud went to Madison at the beginning of the year. The year before, that's when Wisconsin came to St. Cloud. But Rowe had left, so he was only there for that first series. Last year,
yeah, I'm sorry, I was talking about Western.
Oh yeah, you're right. Western came to St. Cloud only. They did not go. St. Cloud did not go to Kalamazoo.
That's right.
So, and that was a split series between those two teams last year. And yeah, I can't really remember much of that series, but it was a split. That's what I remember. And Rowe was fine in it. And so, but
was fine.
I think he's a goalie that you can pounce on, but he's also a goalie that can be stingy. So, yeah, I don't know. It's going to be tough. I'd like to see a full 3-point win this weekend. I'd love to see 6 points, obviously, but keeping it realistic, I think Western's a solid team. They're obviously tough to play at their rink, and considering the recent success of this team, that's kind of how it goes. I had to be reminded this weekend that Miami has not won a regular season game in St. Cloud since the very first NCHC game for both of those teams, way back in either October or November of 2013. Miami won the very first game between those two teams. Since then, they've won 3 times in the playoffs, but in regular season, that's their only regular season win in St. Cloud in the CHC era. And so this extended that streak with the sweep this weekend. And so things kind of tend to happen when you have a team's number like that. That can, like St. Cloud's got a streak in Colorado College. They haven't lost a regulation or an overtime win. I think there's been a shootout loss, but we don't count those. But they haven't lost in Colorado Springs since the WCHA days. So I mean, you can go a long time with streaks like this. We saw St. Cloud have Western's number in Kalamazoo for many years. It's been the opposite the last few, but let's see if we can flip the script. At least get one of these 2 games this weekend.
You talked a little bit about buzzer beaters here around the men's college hockey. Any I kind of had my eye on the Wisconsin Michigan series.
Yeah.
That was one on Saturday that Wisconsin scored a late goal to get the sweep there. 2 impressive sweeps for Wisconsin. Home against Michigan, and then obviously the week before at Mariucci. Kind of anything else stuck out in your mind when you're looking kind of around the college hockey landscape?
You had, did you catch any of the North Dakota BU series? Which I thought was very good. 2 very good games. And that was another kind of late game time goals. BU had come back a couple of times in that Saturday game. UND had a 3-1 lead at one point. Lane Hudson had a hat trick. Yes. And then 4-3, and Boston University ties it with a goal about 2 minutes left in the third. UND ends up scoring in overtime to quasi split the series. In overtime results aren't, to me, it's not a true split, but BU winning on Friday and then North Dakota winning on Saturday, I thought a high quality series between two good teams. So that one stuck out as sort of probably the most marquee non-conference action. Michigan Tech finally getting off the schneid, and that they needed a late extra attacker goal to tie that one on Saturday. Had come back on Friday from a multi-goal deficit, and then tie it late and win in overtime on Saturday. And so they get a full win and an overtime win to get off the schneid.
Because they were down, Friday's game, they were down, like 4-2 after one? Like, it was a high-scoring affair between Michigan Tech and Augustana.
Yes, that's correct. It was 4-2 after one. And so, but that was the only scoring for Augustana that game. It was all in the first period. But maybe Michigan Tech riding the ship a little bit with the Augustana team that I mentioned has been playing valiantly first part of this season. Staying in conference, we saw the other series. We mentioned the Western Michigan Omaha series, Denver throttling CC.
Both nice.
Talking point there, we mentioned it last week with Matt Davis not looking sharp in that Augustana tie they had last weekend. Well, since then, Matt Davis hasn't played, and it's been Freddie. It's either Halik or Halleck. Not sure exactly how you pronounce it, but he started the last 3 games for them.
I've heard it both ways.
Well, I'm going to say Halik. It kind of reminds me of Bobby Holy, but this is Halyk. But we'll probably if he keeps
like
this
Halleck
up
or something.
If he keeps this up, we'll definitely know how to pronounce it. Because 3 starts and 3 wins, albeit it's Air Force and CC, but Denver kind of shaking off that bad result against Augustana with 3 convincing wins against kind of lesser competition since then. So they're looking strong as well. That was the only other conference game in action. I nearly saw Stonehill do it. They came close to sweeping this series, not much less taking 1 game from Arizona State, but they had third period leads in both of those games. On Friday, it was a 4-1 lead at one point in the third. And my pick of Arizona State making the tournament was in dire straits. Stonehill still looking for that first D1 win, but Arizona State beat him in overtime on Friday and then came back to win 3-2 on Saturday. But results that you don't really look positively on if you're a Sun Devil fan.
What's your favorite Dire Straits song?
Romeo and Juliet.
Oh, okay, I gotcha. Every time I hear Romeo and Juliet, I think of Hot Fuzz. I don't know if you've ever seen that movie.
I have not.
It's Edgar Wright movie.
I've heard of it.
Simon Pegg, and it's basically kind of how Shaun of the Dead was, kind of a spoof of the zombie genre. Hot Fuzz is like a spoof of the buddy cop genre, and it's I think it's really fun. It's one of those that it's like you'll watch it and it's like 45 minutes, maybe even an hour, and it's not really like there's some chuckle bits, but like it's not nearly as like funny. And then it just flips the switch and it just like everything like kind of comes all together and culminates, and it's just absolutely hilarious. But there's this one scene where they're going to basically somebody has an accident and they're at a play, or they're going to a play, or they're stars of the Romeo and Juliet play, and the big suspect is like, oh, what happened? And he's playing Romeo and Juliet in the car as he's asking about it. So it's just kind of one of those, like, kind of chuckle, I see what you did there, Edgar, right? kind of things. So
Yeah, he's
Romeo and Juliet, solid song, solid pick.
But Brothers in Arms is a good album. So Far Away. I mean, Knopfler is a great guitarist, and so
he's my top. Knopfler's my top guitarist.
Really?
Time.
So what's your favorite song of theirs?
Sultan's a Swing.
Remember doing research I put them in a crossword, and I believe Brothers in Arms is the notable for being the first album to be released on CD rather than vinyl. I think that was a notable fact about that. I might be wrong, but it's something to do with CD release. Maybe it was like released on CD and it wasn't released on vinyl originally, and that was the first, whatever it was. But and there were, they were the Money for Nothing video is obviously a classic.
That is classic.
Yeah, it's good stuff. I like them.
It's the world's first CD single.
Okay, well, I thought the album. What was the single? Was it Sultan's a Swing? No, that would have been. Was that? That wasn't on that album.
I don't know. If you know us, let us know. We'll issue a correction. I don't want to dig through it right now. Anyway, Dire Straits, solid. Yeah, so sorry to interrupt.
I can't remember what we were talking about.
Somebody was in Dire Straits. Arizona State.
Oh yeah, Arizona State. Yeah.
Stonehill. Those almost got their first win.
St. Thomas sweeping Northern Michigan, including a 6-1 win over them. Doesn't make my Northern Michigan pick to win CCHA look any better. Quinnipiac smoking Harvard. Harvard, not looking great, Bob. Tying Princeton and then getting smoked at home to Quinnipiac. Quinnipiac's Quinnipiac, but not looking great for Harvard so far. Maine sweeping Merrimack. Everyone on the Maine train.
Yep, there you go.
BC keeping up their winning ways. So you saw some of the Wisconsin, Michigan series?
Yeah, I saw quite a bit of it because getting my Big Ten Plus to work.
Well, what was great to see there was the crowd.
Yeah, it was. I actually had this thought too. I was like, it's good to see the Kohl Center like rocking again.
I looked. Those first they started the year against Augustana, and it was Augustana's first ever D1 games, and coming off a couple of years of just terrible hockey under Granato, and I think people were optimistic that Hastings is going to turn it around. Probably not thinking as quickly as they have, but those Augustana games drew 5,000 and 6,000. These games 10 and 12 in those range. And I even looked last year, the Michigan games that they played at home were like set in the 7,000 and 8,000 range last year. So one solid month of good hockey can do for a team like Wisconsin.
Yeah, right.
Bring in,
you sweep the Gophers and look what happens.
Yeah, because these are the first home games since those Augustana games, so they've been kind of on the month or on the road for the last month. But coming back to some great fanfare and a packed house, and that same with like Boston College. I've seen their attendance really tick up this year based on their early start. And as much as I hate it, like seeing the Blue Bloods do well is generally a good thing for hockey because it drives up interest in these kind of big college hockey markets.
Yeah, we do have Dan Jacobson did send in a question that I do have a take on.
Let's put that on ice then.
So perfect. Should we switch over to the women quick?
Yes.
So, we'll go ahead and switch over. St. Cloud State women's team ends up dropping a pair of 2 hard-fought games against Wisconsin. Wisconsin tops in the nation, but came in a little bit battered. You're talking about Caroline Harvey. Andrew brought her up last week. Her being injured kind of put a big hole in their defense. I looked; they really only had 2 lines, and then an
They had
extra
10
center
forwards. 10 forwards on Saturday, and not only was Murphy gone or Harvey out, but I think her name is Wilgren, another one of their key defensemen, was also injured. Or I believe she had an illness on Saturday. I'm not sure. I think she played on Friday, but not on Saturday. So it was definitely a shorthanded team. And St. Cloud looked pretty good in this series, but Wisconsin's just too good. We saw that depth of theirs. Just so we had Maddie Wheeler score the one of the goals on Saturday. I think she's a third liner, but she still puts up points. She would have led St. Cloud in scoring last year, but she's on their third line. She just made this great play with a nice shot beating Choback
bar down,
and it did a good job. I guess we're going out of order here. Let's start with Friday, I suppose. And St. Cloud getting out to a 1-0 lead in halfway through the game, kind of thinking, okay, they don't look. I mean, Wisconsin was out shooting them pretty heavily in that first period. You're kind of thinking if that's going to be.
Yeah, the first period, it was very much Wisconsin. And then we get kind of maybe a little bit of a fluke goal there on what was either the first or second shot of the period for the Huskies. That kind of caused a little bit of chaos out in front, trickled in. And then it was just some back-to-back penalties that were called on us. And then, the end of the first period, I thought, we were playing better throughout the period. We were starting to get maybe a little bit of something, and then the 2 penalties, and then all of a sudden you blink and we're down 2-1 going into the second.
And you're kind of thinking at that point, okay, had the little brief lead, but this is Wisconsin kind of imposing their will. They're able to capitalize on both of those power plays that they got. This might get ugly. But that first period on Friday was the only true dominant period, I thought, from Wisconsin the entire weekend.
Correct.
Yep. And there was even the first period on Saturday, St. Cloud outplayed Wisconsin, which surprised me.
I tweeted out because I went to the game there on Saturday, and I said that I don't know how many periods Wisconsin was outplayed, but that was definitely one of them, if not maybe their first one of the season. So it was just top to bottom on Friday. It was all 4 lines. I thought we were connecting passes. We were playing more up tempo. Things were looking great there for Saturday's game.
I still think on both nights, I still think that Wisconsin on whole is the better team, and I don't think it's that close necessarily. I mean, they're competitive games, but I just think Wisconsin's got 3 lines that are better than St. Cloud's top line, but the shot advantage was basically even throughout the majority of the weekend. Special teams played a big role, obviously. St. Cloud didn't do enough on their power play opportunities, and Wisconsin did enough with theirs. I think that was obviously the key. Getting back to a tie game 2-2 on Friday, and then you see that very nice play. Was that the curl goal to make it 3-2? Just a nice little give and go there. Nothing that Ahola could have done. The 4th goal on Friday is the one that Ahola wants back. That one, I think, was the bad goal to give up.
No, Curls was the power play goal to make it 2-1 at the end. It was Sims.
That's right, and she had a good weekend as well.
She had a very good weekend, yeah.
And she's lead. But so Curl, she's off the score sheet on Saturday though. First time this year that she's been stymied and off the score sheet. I think that was the first.
So JoJo won, Curl nothing is what it comes down to. So
that was, if you're going to say that if St. Cloud wants a chance to win or at least get some points, that would be a big key to shut down Curl, and they did that. Now, some controversy. If we're going into the second game, mentioned that first period was a good one. I mean, Wisconsin scores an early goal, and you're again kind of thinking, is this going to spiral out of control? But St. Cloud fairly soon after that was able to regain sort of the control.
Yeah.
And
that was a little bit unlucky that it like bounced off Himlerova's stick out in front.
Yeah, it looked she may have even directed it in. It wasn't intentional, obviously, but it was a kind of a strange goal.
Again, talking about, being shorthanded, Himlerova had to play defense, only going 5 defense. Grace Wolf was on crutches at the game, and she wasn't in a cast. She was able to put weight on it, and it wasn't like full like legs suspended up in the air. So she was still, it was just walking gingerly. So who knows how long she's going to be out for? And since it's women's hockey, I'm not going to get any news on how long she's going to be out for. I would imagine here with this bye week, getting maybe a little bit of rest, that'll help. Who knows for St. Thomas? But I think her presence was definitely missed because, like I said, she was my pal last week against Minnesota State, and I think some of that defense to kind of slow down maybe a little bit of some of that offense that Wisconsin was able to just kind of roll out forward. A little bit of a hamper right there, but so I thought that was interesting. So I don't know if like Britt as well is a little bit injured, or the freshmen are just not ready, with all of the scratches, or if Fidelsky wants to do some redshirting and he's thinking long term. I guess I don't know exactly what all the plans are when it comes to that, but I mean, it's just interesting that you're technically down to 4 healthy defensemen. And you put Himlerova back there, who's not used to that position, and then sure enough, she accidentally redirects it right back into the net right at the beginning of that.
Pretty sure she played some D last year for an extended period because of an injury, and I could almost think that she took some shifts in the Union series on the point. I don't think it's been. I mean, she's out of position
on power play.
She will, yeah. But I think she did have some experience last year playing the point due to some injuries as well. I think she's a good choice in a pinch to cover the D. She was -4 on Saturday, but 2 of those were empty net goals. I don't even think they should count plus minus for empty net situations. But anyway, I thought she did admirably. But again, kind of another tough break. I mean, you selected Wolf for the Powell last week, and we mentioned then that was the first weekend with Gentry and Lynn back. It was the first series since the Union series that they had played basically fully healthy, at least with their key players. But now if we're losing Wolf for any amount of time here, that resets that clock, the injury clock, so to speak. And so it's like, yeah, can we ever just get a consistent run with the top players available and not injured? So another kind of frustrating break there. But still, that Saturday game, I still think that Wisconsin was able to generate the best grade A chances in the game, but St. Cloud was still hanging in there. A fortunate goal for them as well. Talking about that first Wisconsin goal kind of being fortunate. The second goal for St. Cloud, a bit of a good fortune, kind of puck going off like the referee's skate, sort of to Surreal on the side, and she was able to tuck it in to tie it at 2. And I was feeling pretty good. It didn't feel like you were kind of doing a dull stall in order to get to overtime, but prior to the controversial penalty that was called late in the game, let's just get into that. You were at the game. I was watching it on TV. It was a rare Jim Rich performance.
It was on
for a women's
Fox
game.
9 Plus, right? It was on,
and good work by old friend Julie Friend, who's doing color commentating. And they were, I mean, the play was whistled dead a little late in the action because you had Himlerova down behind the net, behind the St. Cloud net.
Himlerova went down right in front of me because, I've got the 3 kids and whatnot. I can kind of have them maybe run around a little bit more and not around other people is kind of what I like to do there. But yeah, so Himlerova goes down and her leg kind of goes down to the boards hard. and it was right in the Drew LeBlanc side, like it's exact same spot. So I immediately, that's where mine was going. So she was writhing in pain. St. Cloud gets control of the puck. They don't blow it dead when she's
all the way they
clearly
carried
on
to like the
injured.
neutral zone, and they still didn't blow the
Yeah.
whistle dead. And they finally did, and you're thinking that was because of the injury situation. And then it was, I don't know, 3-4 minutes later, and the camera was right on Adulski, and he was not happy. And I was thinking the whole time, I was thinking he's angry because they're putting the face-off in the St. Cloud zone, which is, tough break if it's like their injured player, and that's why you're taking it back. It kind of like made sense, but still I could see a coach being upset. But then
Sure.
Rich is like, oh, I think they're going to call a too many players penalty. And I'm like, huh? They didn't show any replay. I didn't see, during live, I certainly didn't see anything. Now, did someone forget or did not notice that Himmler was down and thinking that you'd figure that the whole focus would have been on her, because that's seemingly what the broadcast was focused on. Like, oh, got Himmler down behind the net.
That's where I was focused on too. And then I looked up and I was like, why are they not calling it dead? Because we clearly took the puck out of the zone. Like, you clearly have a player safety issue right here, and you're not blowing it dead. And then, that could be the case. Maybe there was, or a line change that was too fortuitous, I don't know.
It seemed like they should have blown the whistle dead previously, and maybe they thought that it had been whistle dead, and they were trying to attend to Himlerova, and then they call that like some sort of illegal line change, too many players situation. It smelled. Even from where I was sitting,
it was just all sorts of shit, especially late in the game, and
they'd been playing. I mean, they called it
ticky-tacky penalty. It's just it's like, this is what you're going to call at this stage. Like, I am all for like the rule book and calling it how it should be and everything along those lines. But when it comes to like hooking and slashing and interference, like, call those. But if you're going to call like something like a too many men where it clearly doesn't disrupt a scoring chance or it doesn't give any specific advantage, because you again have somebody down on the ice where you should have called it earlier. It was absolutely ridiculous that they let this play continue.
Yeah, and he kind of knew it too. So it's like I figured that they would score on that power play. And I figured if there wasn't a power play, I figured that game was going to go to overtime, and you're at least going to get something out of it. And maybe it's defeatist to have that mindset. But it was just disappointing, because you're just like, of course they score, and then salt in the wounds, they get 2 empty netters on top of that. It just left a bad taste, because you were so close. You played so well in the weekend. You really didn't deserve to get swept based on how well you played. I hate having to grade on a curve here and take a positive out of getting swept, but I mean, this Wisconsin team is damn good. And
they are.
To play them as tightly as they did, I don't think 4-2 and 5-2 gives
and
it
even
justice.
outplayed them during a couple stretches. So
right, and yes, they were a banged up team, and they didn't have some of their better players. But still, it's frustrating that it had to come down to kind of a technicality like that, which is what I didn't. I didn't like that aspect of it, because again, I'm thinking so this is 3 games now against the top echelon teams. I'm trying to think of get like points in half of those games, which is a tall order. But out of those 16 games, 3 of them, one against the Gophers and these 2 against Wisconsin, unable to get points in any 3 of those so far. And I think it's the difference between them and Duluth is picking up some of these, either having Duluth drop some games against the lower half or the lower 3, let's say, St. Thomas, Bemidji, and Mankato, or St. Cloud picking up wins against the top half. Like so far, Duluth's lost their only 2 games against those top echelon teams, getting swept to Ohio State, and they've taken care of all their lower division games, including this weekend against St. Thomas. So you need to. That's how you're going to be able to jump them, is by getting some points against these top teams, or having to rely on Duluth to drop some of the games against the lower teams, or you just got to dominate them in head-to-head. And that's probably what it's going to come down to. At least win that season series. But
Yeah.
it was an opportunity there to make some hay and to make up some ground here. And because Wisconsin still, Duluth still got to play Wisconsin. And so being able to pocket some points against them now would have gone a long way towards that, standings positional battle that's coming up later this season. So just a frustrating weekend because I think they played pretty well and just tough that they weren't able to get anything out of it. And going into a bye week now, whole conference is actually off this weekend. They have the Hall of Fame game is on Thursday, and that's a non-conference game between two conference opponents in Mankato and St. Thomas. But the entire conference is off. I'm wondering if that had something to do with this rivalry series games coming up this week. I was unaware of this. I'm thankful for Jim Rich to bring this up, but it's this rivalry series, the Team USA against Team Canada. They've been doing this a couple of years now, and it's a 7-game series, but they play it like 3 different weekends, kind of spread out through the season. So they got a game this Wednesday at the Mullet in Tempe. I actually looked at tickets. I'm not going to be able to get off work early enough to get. I'd be able to get off work, but the drive plus Phoenix rush hour puts Twin Cities rush hour to shame. I would maybe get there by the middle of the second period, but I still considered it. And then they're playing, I think, in California on the weekend. And a lot of the players, I mean, most of the players are PWHLers, but there's a fair amount of NCAA players, and most of them are, if not all of them, are WCHA. Like 3 or 4. I mean, Harvey was going to be on the team. She played on the Team USA for the last year or two, but she's not playing because she's injured. That Wildgren, the other defenseman, I'm not sure what her status is, if it was an illness, if she's going to be able to make it. But Curl's on the team. I think there was 3. Edwards, who scored twice in the Saturday game, is on the team. She looked really good too. And so fair amount of representation for Wisconsin, and Ohio State, I think, has a player or two on the team. So, I mean, it's possible that they're giving the whole conference off because of this opportunity. I'm not sure if it is related. It seems weird the whole conference would be off this weekend. So I can't imagine that they're not related in some way. But if you got something to do, these games are going to be on NHL Network. Check it out if you have an opportunity. It should be some good action between the two Canadian powerhouses in women's hockey, USA and Canada.
Yep, exactly. I was going to go back quickly because you brought up Edwards. Yeah, she was. I didn't really give her too much of a mind here before this series, but God, did she impress me! And she is massive out there. Like when I was, because I'm right on ice level and I'm standing up, and like she was. I mean, granted she's on skates and whatnot, but she was. I mean, she was a little bit taller, and she's just a force out there. I think she's listed as 6 foot. So
I'm pretty sure she was the one that did like an end-to-end rush.
Yeah,
she just I thought she was a defenseman at first because I think she took the puck from behind the net, then just kind of skated up and through the St. Cloud defense and made a very good scoring chance out of it. Yeah, took note of her pretty quickly on the series, and yeah, and she's like, she might be one of the more talented players on the team, but as in terms of scoring and even like the star power, she's like 6th best on this team. That's how good this team is.
That's so deep.
Although I think that Julie Friend made a good point after the game. I think they're a little vulnerable in goal.
Yes.
And I think that they're doing this tandem. This is not the Choback-Ahola tandem with Gervais and McNaught.
I don't know anyone in the nation that has it.
That's true.
Choback-Ahola.
But I don't think either of those goalies are even up to like the single, like one of those goalies. And so I think if they have any sort of vulnerability, and this was the first weekend that they really played anyone of real strength. Once they get into the Ohio States, and the Gophers, they haven't been thrilling either. I mean, it's kind of eked out a couple of wins against Mankato, but you play those type of teams, I think they might be able to expose either some youth or some just not as stellar goaltending that we're used to from Badgers goaltenders in the past. So
after the bye is Wisconsin at Ohio State. So that's definitely going to be one that I'm going to keep kind of an eye on. Quickly going back to the rivalry series, that last game as at the XL Energy Center.
That's like in February. Is that right?
In February, yep.
And I checked the schedule. They're not like playing an off weekend in the WCHA that weekend. So I'm not sure if this has anything. Maybe it's just a planned, hey, we're going to have everybody. It seems weird. Like if you're going to have like a week off, why not make it like Thanksgiving or something? Why the second week in November? But yeah, they're playing. So Arizona and then California. Are they playing in Canada as well? Like through in January, I think, or December. I think they try to they sprinkle them through both American and Canadian venues.
Yep, in December they've got 2 games in Ontario, and then in February there's some games in Saskatchewan.
I'd be interested what the vibe is at the Mullet this Wednesday. If it was probably on a weekend, I'd be more likely to go, just because it's a unique situation. International hockey like that coming in to Arizona, it'd be kind of fun. But maybe next time, or at least next time it's on a Saturday night instead of a Wednesday night.
Yeah. But I mean, like you said, though, is that that's kind of a serious marketing problem. If that, I guess maybe I'm not in tune to the right things, but you got to get the word out, because obviously USA Canada, when it comes to women's hockey, there's no love lost there. So those are going to be some intense matches. That's for sure.
Yeah. Should be very interesting to watch.
So, I mean, that's probably the most positive I've ever felt out of after a sweep ever. Right. I mean, I know it sucks not getting any points, but I thought the Huskies looked a lot better than they did against even Minnesota State when they played. I thought that's
probably true.
More cohesive. Their passes were a little bit better, a little bit faster, and whatnot. So we'll see after this bye week. Hopefully we get some players healthy, and then but like you said, like the big change is that the finishers, and the shooters and whatnot. St. Cloud, I think, maybe lacking a little bit of it, whereas obviously Wisconsin has got them in spades. So, do you have a POW for the women's series at all? Because I was going with Sorial.
Yeah, I mean, she had a goal in each game.
Yep, points in each game, and I thought, kind of seeing her take the kind of the next step, I think is was good to see.
Yeah, I think I'll agree with that.
Because she's freshman, so like, she's started to look maybe a little bit more comfortable. Got a couple of assists here. Back one assist against Minnesota State, one against Lindenwood, but to see pop in 2 goals, obviously, I mean, we're gonna need some of that depth. So
I think Gentry was good, even though I don't believe she appeared on the score sheet. Very good in the faceoff dot all weekend. St. Cloud winning the draws in the majority of the draws in both games. I think that added to the level playing field.
She had an assist on Kaufman's goal on the power play.
And we should mention Svenja Voigt. I don't think we've mentioned her yet, but she was the first goal on Friday. And so I always like to mention players like that when they get into the action. And so, yeah, I like the Sorial. I like that POW pick, though. Getting a goal in each game, keeping them in the game, and I think that she Kaufman, I think, played well as well. Yeah, it wasn't like
Kaufman's best weekend.
Yeah, she's been impressive. I mean, she had that great goal against the Northeastern in the icebreaker, but she's been impressive as well. It's good to see. Maybe it's the depth isn't quite at the Wisconsin level. That's tough to beat for anybody to say that, but
it's also tough for Adulski to do that in 2 years. So
it's true. That's true. But yeah, lots of good things to see here, and now we can take the week off, which, considering the Wolf injury, might not be a bad time for a bye week here. But then coming back against St. Thomas with a home and home, and that's going to be another series like that Mankato series a couple weeks ago, where it's like need to get that sweep. So we'll preview that more in depth next week.
Questions. Two questions actually. The first two that I got were both about the officials and the too many players penalty in Wisconsin. So I think we talked about that quite a bit. But Tim Mann and SDP, thank you for those questions there. But basically, yeah, ridiculous. Chris Becker, is it concerning that in many games of the men's team seems to need a score to kind of wake them up? There's definitely some of the games, especially Saturday's game, that first period. I didn't really know what to expect of it. Friday's game, we got that goal fairly early. But I was just more happy to see us extend the lead and like put our boot on the neck of them. That's what I felt like I was actually more concerned about versus some of the slower starts that we've been having this season, is that we haven't been putting teams away. And then we finally did that this series. But yeah, I mean, somebody needs to provide that jolt and that spark. So I think it's an issue, but I think extending the leads and whatnot and putting these teams away is a little bit more of an issue. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think that's what I was thinking before the Werner goal to make it 3-1 on Friday. I was thinking, okay, this game, Miami's going to tie it late. It's going to be 2-2. It's going to be another one of those marathon shootouts that we saw last year, and it's just going to be like, give us half a point and let's get out of here. I don't want to see any of this anymore. That's kind of where that was heading. So that was a big goal from Werner because, it was the story of the Alaska loss. I thought, the chances to get up to a 2-0 lead in that game that you squandered was a big turning point. The opening St. Thomas game, I think, is the same reason. So I don't know about what they need as far as motivation to get in the game. I don't know what, I'm not really sure what to say there, but in terms of extending leads and putting teams away, that's been more troubling. Let's see if they can do that against some better competition here coming up. But good to see at least that these games not slip away, at least that Friday game, because if that game was in October, that game probably does slide away. And maybe this is the turn of something new here, the start of something new.
Indeed. Dan Jacobson, I told you to put a pin in this topic earlier, so let's pull it out. Is BC, Denver, or Wisconsin more annoying being number one in the polls? So those are kind of your top three teams right now. And as much as I was thinking about, God, it's good to have the Kohl Center rocking again, it did make me think, God, did I just say that I'm like hoping for the best of Wisconsin? Is it because of Hastings? But like, it's got to be like the newness of it, right? Because it's got to like phase off soon. Because I've never liked Wisconsin. If you like, which do you think would be the more annoying team to have number one out of those three?
Did I miss? Is there like a 3-way tie for number one, or is that just
not necessarily?
Who is number? Not that I care about the Estro pool, but who I would assume it's BC because I think they were BC. They were number one last week.
Yep, BC, Denver, then Wisconsin.
I mean, BC's whatever. Like we're so far away from them that we don't really have the emotional reaction to BC. Like if we were Eastern fans, we'd have much more of a opinion about them. So that doesn't really move the needle one way or the other for me. Denver and Wisconsin, we've got some nicely formed opinions over many years, and so those teams are a little bit more hitting close to home emotionally. But Wisconsin. See, now my thing with like, it's not like I'm rooting for these teams, and it's different now with, this is like the biggest problem of, this is a yearly rant, so buckle up. You may have heard this one before, but the problem with consolidating all the big schools into the Big Ten is that these sort of bumps in interest are only limited in terms of, if they were in the old WCHA, it's like a trickle up effect. If Wisconsin's better and relevant, we really saw this with the Gophers when they went in their sort of the down Lucia years, late 2000, late aughts, early 2010s. That was an effect on the rest of the league, because when they're losing interest, when they don't draw very well, that serves like a trickle up with the other Minnesota schools. And similar, not as impactful because Wisconsin isn't in Minnesota, but it's similar in that respect. When they're really good, it draws interest in the other smaller schools in the WCHA back then. We don't really see that effect now because they're all in their one big conference with all big schools. There really is no trickle up. I mean, there is, I guess, with non-conference, but the impact is limited because they're all the big boys are in one house, whereas all the other smaller schools are scattered about in other conferences. So it'd be really great if this was the old days and teams like Minnesota and Wisconsin were back to relevance, because that would increase interest in the Bemidji's and all in Omaha and all across what the old WCHA was at the end there. And so we don't really get that impact. But hey, Michigan and Wisconsin can draw 12,000 on a Saturday night in early November. We should be celebrating that. It's better than those two teams getting 4,000 per night and no TV deal. So it's still a good thing that there's that much interest in the game. But the impact, like I said, is a little muted because it's not spreading the love to the other smaller schools, which was like the best possible business model for college hockey. It was the best model, not only for the small schools, but also for the big schools. But so that's a frustrating part of it. But yeah, I guess I don't really. Yeah, I don't know. My brother went to Wisconsin, so I can't like completely hate it, even though I really don't. I mean, and Hastings is not as hateable as Eves or Granada. Even the Granada was like, he was just so bad you couldn't really even hate him really. But certainly Eves, I had more of an issue with Eves. But Hastings, he is a Husky. So he's got a St. Cloud State degree in tow, so I can't hate him too much. But yeah, I mean, Wisconsin's certainly not my least favorite Big Ten school. In hockey, Penn State's got that on lockdown. Probably Notre Dame. Arguably even the Gophers.
Another pod will do a rank the Big Ten schools.
So sure, go ahead. If their success means Penn State's going to be in last place, I'm all for it.
Sure enough. For me, Denver being number one is annoying. Like the most annoying thing. Just be bad already. Just one season, just be bad. Like, you don't have to be like terrible. Like, North Dakota wasn't great. That was nice. Like, just to have that, little bit of a dip every now and then, please. Denver just.
Well, they did that. They did that in the COVID year, and they didn't make the tournament. They were under 500 that year, but
and COVID ruined that. I like that had like a special little ecstasy for me. And
remember that was Carl still thought that they should have gotten in that year, even though they were under 500. It was like them or Omaha was the pick, and so that's their tank. That's their idea of tanking, is like going 10-12 in a COVID shortened season. But the whole excuse there, according to Schlossman, is like what they couldn't practice together regularly.
Yeah.
So
yep, exactly.
Even when things don't go well, they've got a great excuse for it.
Oh, it's so annoying. God, Denver. Nobody likes Denver. And then how soon do we have the promo code for the maple bacon blueberry beef sticks? And that's actually not something really on my. That's too much in a beef stick. Like I love like beef sticks should have maximum of like two things that blend really well together, and then that's it. Like you don't need to pack so many different types of things in a beef stick, in my opinion.
Like at one point, at what point does that become a blueberry stick with meat in it?
Right? Exactly. So
I don't know what you're
like,
talking about because
like a
I
chili
hear
cheese beef stick. Yeah, I mean that's great. Like a jalapeno beef stick, or I don't know. Now I really want to go to Menea's Meats and grab that's kind of the meat market I go to. That's in Sauk Rapids. I can go for like a ribeye too. I should have steak. I want to make a steak again. Anyway, that's where I land on beef stick gate.
I didn't really know what you're talking about when he brought this up at the start of the show or the pre-show. I didn't know what you're talking about.
I'm not 100% sure, but I think it's the fact that Gino Parrish had a bunch of meat sticks in his pocket and he snacks on them during the broadcast. Maybe not during.
Well, that would make sense because I have them on mute during the men's games, and I listened to KVSC, which I told you was making plenty of Weldie reference during their coverage this weekend.
Hey,
so
we appreciate the listen.
I don't actually think they're listening. I think they're just following you on Twitter. So
that's fine.
But
I appreciate the follow
because he almost forgot my name. But he did. I think he did scurry and do his research on the fly, and he found out what my name was. So, well, thanks for listening.
SCSU traveling fan. So
nobody gets that reference anymore. You got to follow me on Green Ground. I got some stamps finally. So if I have some welcome codes. If you want a welcome code, email me huskieshockeypodcast@gmail.com and give me your address, and then I can send you a Green Crown.
There you go. That about does it. This episode here of the Huskies Hockey Podcast. Weldie at More Clappers, MOAR More Clappers. We already got Andrew's handle and Green Ground and his email. So we'll be back next week. Hopefully talking about Western Michigan. And then I don't even know who's after that. Who do we have?
Duluth.
Ugh, gross.
I know.
So it's and then obviously we said we'll probably preview St. Thomas as well. Maybe we'll get in a little bit of the women's rivalry series as well. So I don't know. I don't have any.
Maybe I'll make it up there. Maybe I'll ditch work and I'll go up there and I'll give you a first-hand report.
Perfect. Love it. So until next time, go Huskies. Woo!